So you found a shoebox full of old Magic cards somewhere, and you want to know how much they're worth. There are lots of resources online that will help you organize your entire collection, but if you aren't a Magic nerd and you just want to quickly find out which cards can be easily sold, here's a guide to help you figure that out. Step 1 is to organize your collection. If you're the sort of person who enjoys organizing magical cards, then you can spend a lot of time on this. But for most of us, the simplest thing to do is organize all the cards by set. To do that, you're going to look for the expansion symbol on the card. It's right here in the middle to the right. We're not going to worry too much about the color of the expansion symbol right now, but it will come up later. If the card doesn't have an expansion symbol, we're going to quickly sort it into one of 3 piles. Pile 1 are cards without expansion symbols that have black borders. These are some of the oldest cards in Magic, probably from Alpha and Beta. They have a very good chance of being worth money, so be careful with them. The second pile is going to be white bordered cards that don't have an expansion symbol and don't have a copyright date. That's going to be the number right here at the bottom. These cards are from early reprint sets, Unlimited and Revised. They have a chance of having some very valuable cards in there, but there's also a lot of not so valuable cards in there. But it's definitely worth looking through. Finally, the third pile are going to be cards that have no expansion symbols and have either a white or a gold border. They're very likely to be worth nothing. Of the thousands of cards that fit into this category, there's probably 2 or 3 that are worth maybe $5 to $10. Here they are up on the screen. Step 2 is to set aside the most recent cards. It's possible your box of random Magic cards has newer cards in them. Quickly check the copyright date of all the sets in your box. If any of them were within the last 2 years, then set those aside. More recent sets have a lot more price variation in them, and they're also a lot more in demand, so you have the option of treating them a little bit differently later on. Step 3 is to find a list of the valuable cards from each of the older sets. I really like the website dawnglare.com for this task, since it has a nice visualization feature, but there are a bunch of sites out there that will give you a price list for older sets. Decide a value you want your cutoff to be, and check the piles for those cards. A quick note, the price lists you find are what traders are selling older cards for, not what they're buying them for. So, as a general rule, I'd set my cutoff to be at the lowest $5 to $10 if you're just looking to sell the valuable cards. Any older cards that are only selling for $1 or $2 online are likely not going to be in demand enough for you to easily sell. Step 4 is to take care of the cards that are worth money. So you're going to want to pull them aside and be sure you treat them with proper care. Common sense things mostly, don't put a rubber band around them, don't get them wet or greasy. Step 5 is a few extra steps for newer cards. And the first thing you should probably do is generate a value list for each set like you did with the older cards. But this time I might set my cutoff point for value a bit lower. Newer cards are in more demand, so even if a card is only worth $1 or $2 online, you still should be able to find someone who has use for it. If you have a lot of newer cards, you might want to get some additional cash out of them by sorting them by rarity. What this basically entails is keeping your threshold at about $2 or $3, and then for all of the rest of the cards, pulling out all of the rare and mythic rare cards. These cards might fluctuate in value enough that someone is willing to pay you a bulk rate for them, more or less on speculation. The way you identify bulk rare cards is by looking at the color of the expansion symbol. So rares are gold and mythic rares are purple. Just pull those aside and make a note of how many of each you have. If you walk into a local gaming store with, say, a half dozen mythic rares and a dozen rares from a more recent set, then you should be able to walk out with a couple of bucks. Step 6 is what to do with the rest of your collection, and unfortunately, if you follow the above 5 steps, the rest of your collection is probably next to worthless. You might be able to find a local gaming store that buys bulk cards at a very low rate, or a friend that is happy to flesh out their collection and offer you a buck or two for the box. In either case, you should probably be upfront with them and tell them that it's been picked through already for value. There are other uses for them. They make decent art supplies or gifts for young and nerdy children.